I was having y'all, your boy Rico from RicoScores and ESPN's very own through an exclusive content article. So this is some real stuff, you know what I'm saying? Dan Graziano, who is like an inside source to a lot of things going on in the NFL, one of those background guys that has ties everywhere, he gave his expert prediction for who the next Washington Commanders head coach will be. He did an entire article for multiple teams. He's predicting all of the head coach Atlanta spots: Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers, Las Vegas Raiders, Los Angeles Chargers, Seattle Seahawks, Tennessee Titans, and then finally us at the end of the article. We're going to dive into who that person is. Of course, again, this is an expert prediction. This is not even like a bet and odds thing. This is not him reporting that we are literally going to hire this guy. This is just his prediction when he's trying to place all of the puzzle pieces to see where every head coach will land, as far as every potential head coach and landing spot and all of that type of stuff right there. So we also got to, of course, talk about why there will be strong mutual interest between this said head coach and the Washington Commanders, why we will want him really bad and why he will want to be the head coach for us very badly as well. Also, we got to talk about this whole CEO coach-centric model basically being a thing of the past. Shouts out my boy at Refs the District for bringing up these stats. We got to talk about it, man, because it's a dying breed right now. Teams are just not successful with that type of design for the front office and coaching staff. So we're going to dive into all of that and more. But before we do, make sure you still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, and still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get a notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content that I'm coming out with. I'm sorry, man. The mock draft just keeps getting delayed because this article came out at 6:50 a.m. this morning. I was fully prepared to go ahead and put out that mock draft, and then this happened. So I'm just going to go ahead and definitely, at the latest today, like in the evening or night, I will come out with that mock draft. But I also have another video that I'm super excited about that I want to work on that next, and I'm going to talk about who my favorite defensive coordinator candidate that's potentially available for us to grab if we go offensive-minded head coach that's out there. I was thinking about doing that tonight, but I was like, man, I've already delayed the mock draft enough, and I'm just super excited to talk about my picks already anyway. So the mock draft is tonight, and then I'm coming out with my favorite defensive coordinator candidate tomorrow, so make sure you stay tuned for all of that. And without further ado, man, let's go and get to it right now. Let's get it. Again, this is from the exclusive content section of ESPN from Dan Graziano, the senior NFL national reporter for ESPN. This came out literally just this morning, 6:50 a.m. And let's just go ahead and jump into it. For the Falcons, he picked Bill Belichick, and yes, sir, as an active, fully employed 40 hours a week, overtime included, employee of the month, Falcons hater. Please take Bill Belichick. Yes, sir, man, do that. Then the Raiders, he selected Antonio Pierce. Then for the Chargers, he selected Jim Harbaugh. For the Seahawks, he picked Mike Vrabel. For the Tennessee Titans, he picked Aaron Glenn, the Lions defensive coordinator. And I just did a video last night explaining how technically Raheem Morris kind of won that matchup against Ben Johnson. Even though the Lions won, Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator of the Rams, won that direct matchup against Ben Johnson's Lions, in my opinion, especially the second half of that game. You could argue Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Lions, was the true MVP of that game between all three of those coaches. And I'm saying all of that to basically say that Aaron Glenn is a great choice for the Tennessee Titans if they want to go that direction. And then for the Panthers, and I saved them as second to last for a reason, he has them getting Brian Callahan from the Cincinnati Bengals, which is really interesting. And the reason he doesn't give anybody Bobby Slowick, you know, spoiler alert before we even get to where we are right now, he explains that because Bobby Slowick only has 1 year as an offensive coordinator, teams may stay away from him to prefer more experience and at the very least wait until he gets another year as a offensive coordinator. Because like I've said, man, Bobby Slowick is probably the biggest boom or bust candidate out there doing it. He probably has the highest ceiling, but also I can see why a lot of people are afraid of the fact that he's only been an offensive coordinator for 1 year in his NFL career this past year. That's it. Before then, has never been an offensive coordinator and has definitely never been a head coach. So I can see that. That makes sense, even though I would still easily take a chance on Bobby Slowick as my head coach. It is what it is. But that takes us to where we are. He's pointed out former coach Ron Rivera fired the day after the regular season ended, and it was his 4th season with the team. Then he said known candidates: Aaron Glenn, who we talked about a little bit earlier, Ben Johnson, Mike McDonald, Anthony Morris, Dan Quinn, Anthony Weaver, and Bobby Slowick. So from what he's hearing around the NFL, those are the guys that we're potentially targeting. That's the short list. So can we please stop with the Bill Belichick stuff? Please. Can we please lay that to rest? And even though Jim Harbaugh is a pretty good candidate, it doesn't sound like we're targeting him. We've already requested to interview a lot of potential head coaching candidates, and Jim Harbaugh, I'm not even sure if it was one of them. At a certain point, I believe Bob Myers reached out to Jim Harbaugh's agent, but that's literally as far as it's gone. That's it. So Graziano said, my prediction for the next Commanders coach, he said Ben Johnson. New Commanders owner Josh Harris already landed his top target for GM and Adam Peters. Many people around the league believe Harris has been focused on Johnson as his top choice for coach, though there are some who think Bobby Slowick and Mike McDonald are still possibilities. Let's dissect that alone real quick. So he's saying that Ben Johnson is the #1 choice from everything he's hearing behind the scenes. And again, this is a trustworthy insider. Granted, this is an article that he's producing to get clicks and views. But when he says certain things like that, you got to read in between the lines. And basically, Ben Johnson is our leading candidate, like I've reported in several other videos, for different reasons. He's our betting odds leader right now by far. There's been reports that Adam Peters even wants to go all in on him. But also another point is that my top 3 head coaching candidates out there, I love the fact that those are the 3 main candidates that he says are most likely to be hired by us. He says based on what he's hearing behind the scenes from executives, agents, scouts, just people that are close to NFL sources or actual NFL sources like Josh Harris and guys like that, and NFL owners, whoever matters in the background of all of this NFL movement going on. Apparently, everybody feels like Ben Johnson is our #1 choice, and then Bobby Slowick and Mike McDonald are 2 and 3 in no exact order, and that has me super excited. I've already done breakdowns of why I want either of those 3 coaches. I would be elated. I would do a backflip. I would learn to do my first backflip in my life, potentially, if we end up getting any of those 3 offensive or defensive coordinators as our next head coach. Super excited, man. Home run hire no matter what. He also goes on to explain Harris's process so far has been thorough but not slow. I believe he really wants Johnson. Again, he's not just making this stuff up. He's an insider for a reason. He must be hearing things behind the scenes. And he and Peters are in position to make that happen. Even if it's just about getting an agreement in place that can't be finalized until after the Lions season ends. So he's saying that maybe after we do this preliminary virtual interview with Brian Johnson, which I already reported on, I believe that was yesterday, but that's coming out Friday. Like, they will have the official preliminary virtual interview. Adam Peters, Josh Harris will meet with Ben Johnson virtually over Zoom for the first time, I think, in this entire process. And then you never know, maybe we blow it out the water, maybe he blows us out the water. There's potentially very strong mutual interest there, and maybe he can just go ahead and agree to something like on principle type of thing, but we can't have anything finalized or in writing until after the Lions officially end their season. So if anything, I guess us as Commanders fans would prefer the Lions to lose this upcoming playoff game so we can just go ahead and get this over with, so we can stop being stressed and worrying about it and thinking about it. Even though I'm rooting for Ben Johnson, just because, I mean, if he's our next potential head coach, I want to see him go as far as he can. I want more games to show why he should be our head coach and to break down more of his scheme and more play designs, getting receivers open, making things easy for Jared Goff, getting all of the running backs, all of the weapons involved, running backs, wide receivers, Sam Laporta's development as well. So the more I get to watch Ben Johnson even before we hire him, the better. But at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, man, the sooner the Lions are done with their season, losing the playoffs, whatever, the quicker we can potentially hire Ben Johnson as our head coach and go ahead and secure that bag right there. Also, JP Finley and B Mitch, who was in whatever that was with Jay Gruden and RG3, I don't know what was going on with that. But JP Finley and B Mitch, they said that they agree that they think Ben Johnson will be the next head coach of the Commanders. We both, however, think that there's a scenario where Tepper throws reckless money around, and that could change things. Still, feels like Johnson in DC. And now they aren't necessarily as close to outside sources as like a Dan Graziano, but they're reporters, and based on what they're probably hearing behind the scenes, maybe from Josh Harris's and Adam Peters' side of things, just purely speculation, but maybe there's some whispers going around that that is their favorite target, that's their top target. But of course, just because he's our top target does not mean that we'll get him. Maybe he would prefer to go to somewhere like a Carolina Panthers. But I'm telling you now, I don't think money is everything. We're gonna dive into that very soon in this video and explain why I think there will be strong mutual interest between us, why Ben Johnson is such a great candidate for us, and why we're such a great landing spot for him. I'm telling you now, I don't think money matters enough. I have some exact quotes from Ben Johnson on why he's made decisions he's already made. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and dive into that now. So, what does Ben Johnson actually look for in a head coaching landing spot? Well, he had an interview early last year, and the interviewer literally asked him why he stayed in Detroit rather than going to take a head coaching job elsewhere, most notably the Carolina Panthers, basically the same color. And basically in general, he said that he loves what the Lions were doing, and literally said he returned for one simple reason: believing in the staff and the front office from top to bottom. And I would definitely say that we're building one of those here. I would definitely argue that. I feel like we're building one of the smartest and best organizations in the NFL under Josh Harris, Eugene Shin, and Adam Peters, especially Adam Peters. So he preferred to basically stay as an offensive coordinator with a better organization in the Lions over getting more power, more control, and more money with a worse one in the Carolina Panthers. So maybe he was waiting on a situation like us to come up. We weren't available. We weren't in the top landing spot yet. Maybe that's what he was waiting on. He was like, man, I prefer to just stay an offensive coordinator, not get paid more money, not get more control, and just wait to see what that next hiring cycle opens up and looks like. And then here we come, the landing spot of his dreams. I told y'all months ago, we were the dream case scenario landing spot for top potential GM candidates. A lot of people doubted it. Now look, we have the top GM candidate as our GM now, and we had other top candidates, Ian Cunningham and Alec Hallaby, fighting for this spot. They were competing against each other to come be our GM, not the other way around, us competing with other organizations to get them to become our GM. And I would not be surprised if head coach goes the exact same way. I have the same exact feeling. I feel like whoever we want to be our guy, especially between those top three guys, including Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, Mike McDonald, I feel like we're going to land at least one of them, if that's what we truly want to do. If the reports come out and whatever they're saying behind the scenes is true, that Adam Peters and Josh Harris prefer Ben Johnson, I think we'll get him. Because for another reason I want to add to it, I truly believe he is only taking that Panthers interview, one, just to make sure they're still on that BS. Like, before I go and accept this position with Washington, let me just check one more time to see if y'all are still on that same BS y'all were on last hiring cycle last year. And number two, maybe he's even using the Panthers as leverage to get us to outbid the Panthers to pay him more money. Like, maybe he's using the Panthers like towards us, like, hey man, I might go accept this position and they're offering more money. If you offer me more money than them, I'll definitely become y'all head coach. So maybe there's that. We'll see. That's all speculation. That's just all coming off the top of the brain from Rico of Street Scores. Don't read into that too much, but you never know. That could be a real thing. Also, I've already done a full breakdown on how anything Tepper can do, Harris can do better. And I believe that also maybe even includes money. I mean, shouts out to Chris Cooley for this meme right here. I've already explained in several videos how Josh Harris doesn't seem to be cheap or frugal in any way. Whatever it takes to get your guy at whatever it is, head coach, GM, front office member, whatever, he's willing to pay whatever it takes. Top dollar. His coaching staffs, both in the NBA and the NHL, are some of the highest paid in those respective leagues. And then he's out here creating different job titles just because those guys give us even a small percentage of a chance to improve this organization on and off the field. Eugene Shin has a title that most NFL teams don't have. Tim McGrath has a title that I believe no other NFL team has. Josh Harris is not thinking about money. He's like, can you help my burgundy and gold, the team I just bought, become a Super Bowl contender and to be a long-lasting dynasty? Yes? Then all right, here's this title, here's this power, here's these responsibilities, and here's this bag. Whatever it takes, just come do that, please. I love that. And also, going back to Ben Johnson, it seemed like he was having the time of his life coaching those young quarterbacks at that 2022 Senior Bowl. And they already had Jared Goff, so it wasn't even like they were looking for a quarterback to draft at the time. And yet he was fully engaged, like calling up the plays. He was super animated and passionate. He was telling jokes and laughing and everything with the other coaches there, with Mark Brunell, who's his quarterbacks coach. He'll probably bring him with him over here to the Commanders, to the Burgundy and Gold, if we hire him. He was joking with the quarterbacks and all of that. And just imagine how happy he would be with the number 2 overall pick to find his own franchise quarterback for the Commanders. Because again, he was just there with no stake in it, in anything that was going on over there. They had their franchise quarterback, Jared Goff. He's sitting there coaching all of these young quarterbacks up, like Sam Howell, Malik Willis, and Bailey Zappi, all of these guys, with no real incentive to be as passionate as he was about that situation. So again, imagine this guy with the number 2 overall pick with the chance to get his own franchise quarterback, and how excited he potentially is about that, man. I'm super excited. And also, remember, the Panthers don't even have a first-round pick. And when taking that job, if he were to, you already know that Bryce Young is your quarterback, and your immediate job is to make him good, or at the very least, look good. It's literally forced upon you, no ability to decide. And even if the Panthers gave Ben Johnson the power to choose between Bryce Young or a potential draft quarterback, how are they going to get one without a first-round pick? Or, I mean, I don't like their chances of getting one, especially over the number 2 overall pick that we have. So he comes in and immediately has more power and control over what is going on with the Burgundy and Gold than he would have with the Lions. So you could argue he has more power with us than the Lions. He has more draft capital, more cap space. I've already done a full breakdown on that in other videos. But man, I mean, I'm just looking from Ben Johnson's point of view, no bias, all bias aside. Like, why in life would you prefer the Panthers over us, except for literally unless they just offer him the biggest bag ever? Also, at the Senior Bowl in 2022, even beyond just how passionate he was and everything like that, Sam Howell asked Ben Johnson, while they were standing side by side watching some drills go on, why he likes to coach. He literally asked him straight up, why do you like to coach? And Ben Johnson said one word: relationships. And that's definitely to our advantage by a landslide, man, because Adam Peters was voted the GM candidate as far as having healthy relationships with everybody in the NFL by anonymous NFL agents, that he was like the best at that, like as far as like having healthy relationships with reporters, with scouts, agents, other GMs around the NFL, other front office members in the NFL, coaching staffs and things like that. He was literally voted the guy that's the best at that. Even out, that's including other teams' GMs. He wasn't even a GM yet when they did that survey. He was still an assistant GM for the 49ers when that survey went down, before we even hired him to be our official GM. And he's already voted the best at developing relationships, especially healthy ones like that. And then also on top of that, Josh Harris seems very likable by everybody except for Joe Buck during that awkward handshake when Josh Harris was drunk in the booth. That boy was zooted, man. And then on the other side, you got to look at what we got, and then look at what the Panthers got. David Tepper is probably the worst in the healthy relationships category, the healthy relationships department. Meddling self over there. So, hey, man, I just don't see how Ben Johnson can look at us and look at them and be like, yeah, I prefer to do that, unless it's like a ridiculously different amount of money, like a super significant gap in money. It's gotta be. That's the only thing it could be potentially, man. I have all of the confidence in the world that Ben Johnson, if we want him, he'll be our next head coach. Point blank, period. Also, let's talk about why we want Ben Johnson. I love Ben Johnson's ability to scout quarterbacks and design the right offense around that quarterback, call the right plays for that quarterback, and do all of the right things to get the most out of quarterbacks. Because look at the Jared Goff situation. He even had a quote that was really interesting. He was leading the charge out of all of the Detroit coaches that truly believed that Jared Goff had a lot more to give outside of just Sean McVay's offense. At a time when very few people did, when everybody was still low on Jared Goff, Ben Johnson was the main one looking like, hey man, we could trade for him and I could get greatness out of him. We can go to the playoffs with that guy. Just put him in my offense. Sean McVay isn't doing enough. His exact quote was, for the most part, that's all Jared knew as he was growing up in this league, Ben Johnson says of Sean McVay's offense. So I think it's been a little eye-opening to him to find out that there isn't necessarily a right or wrong way. It was just what McVay believed in, unquote. Ben Johnson basically looked at what Sean McVay was doing with Jared Goff and was like, I can do better with that same exact quarterback. Now translate that to what a potential quarterback he could get in this draft. Just imagine what he could do with one of these top 3 guys, Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Jaden Daniels, all of which who have more arm strength and more mobility than Jared Goff. If he can get that level of great play from Jared Goff, I think he threw 22 of 27 completion-wise in that game against the Rams in this playoff game. Just imagine what he could do with one of those top 3 talents in this upcoming draft. And even to our benefit, he has to be thinking the same thing with that number 2 overall pick. Also, before we move on, very random, but also makes me very optimistic about how quickly we could succeed with a Ben Johnson as our head coach if we go that direction. Shouts out to my boys at Ref the District, Twitter, YouTube. Follow them on Twitter, everywhere, man. Great follows, bringing up great stats. You hear me bring them up a lot of the time for a reason. And they brought up a good point. When you're looking at all of the 8 coaches, head coaches left in the NFL playoffs right now, 2 of them are retreads, Andy Reid and Todd Bowles. And shouts out to Todd Bowles because Georgia has his son as a linebacker. He was a 4-star in last year's 2023's recruiting class. So shouts out to Todd Bowles for that, man. Just something completely off topic there. But 2 retreads, again, Andy Reid and Todd Bowles, 6 first-time head coaches, Jim Harbaugh, Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, DeMeco Ryans, Dan Campbell, and Mike McDermott. Now, granted, I do want to point out the fact that when I say first-time head coaches, that, like, the job they currently have was their first time being a head coach in their coaching career at the NFL level. So, yeah, I know a lot of these guys have been head coaching for a long time, most notably like a John Harbaugh. Because, again, all 6 of those guys that I just named, outside of Andy Reid and Todd Bowles, are head coaching for the team that gave them their first head coaching opportunity at the NFL level. John Harbaugh just never left and has had long-term success there. And then you have some other coaches who have been doing it for a while, again, like a Kyle Shanahan as well. But then you also have a DeMeco Ryans, who is not only a first-time head coach, but this is his first year as a first-time head coach, his first organization that he's ever done it with at the NFL level. So for those people out there that are worried about hiring a potential head coach to his first head coaching job ever, don't. It can work. You have seasoned veterans like John Harbaugh. First time becoming a head coach was with the Ravens. He's been there since, so it shows the longevity and the long-term success you can have with that. And then you also have DeMeco Ryans as an example, as immediate success that you can have with a first-time head coach as well. You can figure it out on the fly, man, and we're building a great support system to help. And so if there's any faith that anybody can do it, it's us that can bring in a guy like that. And then also, super random, but also applies here as well. Shouts out to Refs, the district, for this as well. Out of the 8 coaches left in the playoffs, 2 of them are CEO types in John Harbaugh and Dan Campbell. 3 are offensive play callers, Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, and Matt LaFleur. And 3 are defensive play callers in Todd Bowles, Sean McDermott, and DeMeco Ryans. So it looks like you're more likely to succeed as long as you pick offense or defense rather than just getting that CEO type. Because when we're talking CEO type, we're talking culture builders, the leaders of men, CEOs, the coach-centric models and things like that. We've seen Pete Carroll fail. Well, I mean, now they've just basically given up on him. It hasn't worked out much since they were really great at one point in time. You see Mike Vrabel getting fired. You see the future Hall of Famer, arguably head coach, best head coach of all time, the GOAT. He's gone. Ron Rivera, in our example, gone, done. Couldn't fire him soon enough type of situation. Then you even have Ron Rivera when he spoke to John Comm. That article just came out today, and I may do a breakdown on that in a separate video. He came out and said something to the extent of, once he stopped being so much of a GM and was able to just focus purely on coaching, he felt like he just had a way better time. He was having way more fun. It just felt more comfortable, and it made more sense to him. And it's like, dog, you the one that decided to do that. You're the one that wanted this coach-centric model to run everything. But you could tell that was inevitable because every year he started to give up more and more power as the process went on. I'm not about to sit there and dive into that for another few minutes because we've already passed that chapter. But I mean, come on, dog. So my whole point is these coach-centric models, these CEOs are not working right now. Shouts out to Ref the District for providing that information again as well. The only ones left are John Harbaugh and Dan Campbell. All of the other 6 playoff head coaches right now are either offensive-minded or defensive-minded. They handle something. They do something on that side. So, hey, man, that makes me more optimistic that either Ben Johnson or Bobby Slowick on the offensive side or Mike McDonald on the defensive side could really work out for us. But, yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Again, like I said, stay tuned. Your Commanders one-stop shop. Any little and random news for the Commanders, I'm talking about everything. And like I said, be on the lookout for a mock draft later on this evening / tonight, and then be on the lookout for tomorrow morning. Unless some breaking news sets me back, I'm planning on putting out my favorite defensive coordinator candidate out there, especially if we go offensive-minded head coach like a Ben Johnson or a Bobby Slowick. So be on the lookout for that, because I'm bringing stats, I'm bringing examples, I'm bringing player development and how the guys he's coached because he was there became better than what they were before he got there. All of that type of stuff. So stay tuned for my favorite defensive coordinator candidate. All of that. Stay tuned. Catch y'all later. I'm out.